So let's just do some brief introductions. I'm Tammy Chisholm. I work for Carroll County Public Schools as a family support coordinator. I work with any families birth to 21.
I'm Laura Schaefer. I'm a special educator with the Birth to Kindergarten program.
I am Nicole Trotz, kindergarten teacher at Carrolltown Elementary.
And I'm Nicole Hunsaker, kindergarten teacher at Runnymede Elementary.
And there's a couple other folks in the room that I want to introduce. Yes. Chris Whittle is in the back. She is the director of special education. Pam Myers is up here. She's a supervisor for elementary education and early childhood curriculum and instruction. Beth Fagan is the coordinator of the Birth to Kindergarten program. So we just want to welcome you guys and thank you for taking the time out of your evenings and busy lives to come and hang out with us and just to get a general overview of what your children are going to experience in kindergarten.
The purpose for tonight is to help you get acquainted with what a day in kindergarten may look like. There are 23 schools in our county. Each school does things a bit differently. We have tried to give you a look into what your child will be doing during their school day. So before we begin, what do you think it looks like for a child to be ready for kindergarten? She said knowing letters and sounds.
Shapes.
Knowing shapes.
Colors.
Colors.
How to write their name.
How to write their name. Yep. So we aren't just looking at academics. We're also looking at that social emotional skills, their independence and responsibility, and being familiar with a classroom setting, like rules, routines, structured environments. This is a typical schedule for a kindergarten class to follow. The times and order will be adjusted to your child's particular school. Special education services may occur within the general education classroom or pulled out of the classroom. This is identified in your child's IEP or individualized education plan. This number of adults in the classroom may vary depending on students' needs. While your children are attending specials, your children's teachers are collaborating with other professionals in the building.
So the first subject area we're going to talk about is ELA, which stands for English Language Arts, and includes reading, writing, and explicit phonics instruction. In one of the breakout sessions, we're going to be modeling what ELA will look like for your child's classroom. So what is the structure of the ELA block? They're going to be in a whole group setting, the small group instruction, independent practice literacy centers, and writing. They're going to use visual, kinesthetic, tactile modes of learning to engage the variety of learning styles through differentiation. So these are the topics covered during the whole group lesson time. The CAP is going to be the concepts of print, such as the front cover of the book, the title of the book, where to start reading. Fundations is an explicit phonics program that we'll share more about in a little while. Comprehension strategies help young readers gain a deep understanding of the stories. And lastly, a greater knowledge of the high frequency words or sight words, and they might also be referred to as heart words, can help increase a child's reading and writing ability. During literacy groups, guided reading will consist of 3 to 4 flexible groups per class. Instructions tailored to meet the needs of each student. Targeted skills, phonemic awareness, phonics, high frequency words, and comprehension.
Fundations, like she said, is our phonics program. Your child will receive phonics instruction every single day from Fundations. This is our Fundations sound card. You should have a copy in your folders tonight. I want to point out a couple of the letters. So the format is there's a letter, and the letter has a sound, right? In Fundations, the children will learn that there's a keyword attached to that as well to help them learn and remember the letter and the sound that it says. So a few of, most of them make sense. A, apple, a. A few of them are a little trickier. Like if you look to letter E, that guy's name is Ed. So we would say E, Ed, E. The monkey is itching his armpit, and we would say I, itch, I. Okay. We also have, oh, let's get back to the F. Those children are having fun, so we would say F, fun. And then I want to skip down to the fox for letter X, because X you hear at the end of words more, right? So we would say X, fox, X, because that's the sound. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Also, writing is so important, and maybe one of the areas that you'll see the most growth in kindergarten. We'll start with drawing a very detailed picture and then adding labels and words, moving into phrases and sentences, and ending the year. The goal is 2 sentences on a topic with capital letters and punctuation and spacing and correct letter formation that makes sense and has a picture to go with it. It's very, very exciting and fun to watch a kindergartner's writing progress through the year. So again, we're communicating through drawing and through our writing, using those sounds to stretch out the words. It's quite a process. It's important to know that invented spelling is completely appropriate this time. So if your child is writing something the way it sounds, it might be spelled wrong, but look right or sound right, and that is great. That's developmentally appropriate. And handwriting is embedded in our instruction. It's super important too. And then high frequency words. Your child will be exposed to high frequency words, not just in ELA, but throughout their learning day and in special areas too. You can help at home by helping them practice them. You may hear them called a few different things. So high frequency words just means that they have a high frequency in life. You will say them a lot, you will read the words a lot, and you'll write them a lot. Think the or a or and. You also may hear them called sight words because you have to learn them by sight. They're so important. And you may also hear them, hopefully, called heart words. And that is from the science of reading. And it basically is drawing attention to the part of the word that's tricky or that they don't know yet. So in the word the, if you think about T and H, they don't know at the beginning of the year when they're introduced to the, that TH says th, or that the E says in that word. So that whole word is a hard part. So you may see letters or parts of the word in red or with a little heart on top. That just means that they need to learn that part by heart. So the most important thing for you to know as parents is that high frequency words, sight words, and heart words, synonyms, they all mean the same thing, okay?
The next area of curriculum is math. Math activities lend itself to hands-on learning. They learn best by touching, doing, moving, and singing. So they're in math instruction for 1 hour daily, which is broken up into whole group instruction, which is number talks, math literature, problem solving, the concepts, fact fluency practice, and then they also have flexible small group instruction.
So within our math curriculum, we currently have 4 units. The first one, Unit 1, Counting and Cardinality to 10, and Operations and Algebraic Thinking, is one of our longer units. We really focus on identifying numbers 0 to 10, counting objects. We'll use different tools like a 5-frame, a 10-frame. We're also working on decomposing, rote counting, fact fluency, story problems. We'll get more into this during our math breakout sessions. Unit 2 is about measurement and data. We will compare numbers, compare different sets, but then we'll also work on the length, the height, and the weight of objects. Unit 3 is repetitive to Unit 1. We use the same standards and skills. The difference is we go up to numbers to 20. And then our last unit, geometry, we're focusing on 2D shapes, 3D shapes, their attributes, and then positional language. Throughout the entire year, though, there are certain standards that will be met, counting to 100 from a given number, counting by tens to 100, the fact fluency, decomposing, and story problems.
ELA. One, I didn't introduce you to someone. We have a special guest here. This is Echo the owl. And Echo lives in every kindergarten classroom He's magical. He helps to introduce the letters and the sounds to the students. He just draws them in, makes everything more fun. They listen better when Echo is there teaching. So he will likely become a familiar name in your house, just so you know this is who he is. You can kind of say hello, okay? Going back to foundations, thank you so much. The strip, you should have this strip in your folder, right? It would be wonderful if you hung this somewhere where maybe your child likes to play or write or draw or color, the fridge, somewhere that you can kind of gently introduce it to them. By no means do you need to, but these are the letters and the keywords. Yes? You can have this one. The letters and the keywords from, it would be great naturally to start talking about them. Maybe choose, if your daughter's name is Kim, maybe pointing out, oh, K, kike, just kind of naturally weaving the letters and sounds into what you're already doing. And you can kind of just like point that out. If you're coloring together or if you're walking, if you're reading, you can point some of those letters and keywords out. We will teach them all together. So the kids will say A, apple, A, B, bat, B, all the way through. And then eventually, once we've taught all the letters, we will kind of drop the keyword because they won't need it anymore. The keyword's literal job is to like glue the letter and sound in their head, if that makes sense. The Foundation's letter order is not alphabetical order. So the first letters that your child will learn are T, B, and F, and then they are mixed up the rest of the way. Because it's where we learned, our students come into kindergarten and they're able to say the alphabet and sing the alphabet all the way through, but that doesn't necessarily mean they know and own the letters and the sounds mixed up. So you can even, if your child knows all their letters and sounds, mix them up, see if they can say just the letter name, just the sound, maybe just the keyword if they've been exposed to foundations maybe in preschool. That will be a really great way to kind of make their brains and their letters and sounds more flexible. Yes. Okay. Are you familiar with Chicka Chicka Boom Boom? It's like quintessential kindergarten book. It's one of our favorites. This is a large copy of Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, and I just want to walk you through a few pages of what it could look like for you to read with your child. It doesn't have to be this book. It can be for any book. So when we talked earlier about the CAP or concepts about print, that's all of the behaviors you need to read. So how to hold the book, where to start reading, all the parts of it. So you can even say, like, this is the front cover, this is the title, Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. Oh, Bill Martin wrote the book, and with John A, and it's illustrated by Lois Ehlert. Do you know what that means? That means she drew the picture. So kind of make it exciting. You may think, my 4 or 5-year-old they're not paying attention to this. I promise they are. You're building that knowledge. They're going to have the same talk from their kindergarten teachers. So for them to hear that language early just better prepares them to be read to in kindergarten. So you can talk, what do you see on the front cover? Oh, I see a tree. There's some coconuts. Look at these big leaves. It looks exciting. I wonder what's going to happen. Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. You can even say that kind of sounds like a music or a rhythm or a lyric. And then you can open the page. You're very good, Vanna. And you can keep going. This page is super fun. It's not quite the title page, but sometimes books have bonus pages, and you can say, oh, what do you see? Do you see any letters? Maybe the letters in your name. Like, don't miss this moment. And then as you turn on here, we have the title page, and it tells us the title one more time. It tells us the author and the illustrator's names again. Sometimes the picture's the same. Sometimes it's different. Is this one different? Is it the same? Lots of conversation just from 3 pages so far. And then you get a bonus title page sometimes. And here we go. And when you're reading with your child, I would suggest pointing with your finger to track the print and follow along. You can use just your finger. A told B and B told C. I'll meet you at the top of the coconut tree. And then we have A, B, and C. That just silently shows your child, oh, the words go this way, and then down here, and then this way, and then down here. You don't even have to say that out loud, your finger's showing them. If maybe your child needs a little more excitement to do that, or they want to be the one pointing, you could grab something like a popsicle stick, a Q-tip, a spoon, something you have at your house to track print with that. I know in kindergarten and also with my own kids, we love these like witch fingers that you can get, like Halloween, right? That's a fun way to point to the words. It just makes it a little more exciting, right? Or you could even make this, they're like little eyeballs. And it just makes your finger more excited, just reading more exciting, right? When you're reading, you can also look for letters that are familiar to them or in their name. So maybe your son's name's Ben. Ooh, do you see a letter from your name? Yeah, B. You could take a wiki stick or a Post-it note or even I don't know where they went, like a magnifying glass to highlight those things if you wanted to. You could take a piece of yarn and put it underneath, anything to just draw excitement to the book. You can also just read it. Okay, and so then we turn the page like this when we're done reading. And we start on this page, and here we go again. We, said D to E, F, G. I'll beat you to the top of the coconut tree. And now we read over here. Chicka, chicka, boom, boom. Will there be enough room? Here comes H up the coconut tree. And so you can see, like, you can just read along. You don't have to say, oh, now we go over here, but you can. All of this is teaching your child reading behaviors. So what you're already doing at bedtime, throughout the day, having a book just available, doing these things is so, so helpful for your child. Now, maybe your child knows all their letters or almost all their letters, and they're ready to talk about high frequency words, sight words, heart words. You can find them in the text too. So you can say, oh, we're learning the word R or A or the or my. Oh, here's one. Here's the word to. Here's the word you. Here's the word the. You can highlight them, again, with highlighting tape if you have it, or just circling it with your finger. Or if you have the word card, you could match it. Can you find this word on this page? Another way to like loop in your kids and make the book be a little more than just a book, if that makes sense. Okay? Is that good? Did I hit everything? Okay. Oh, yes. Perfect. Yes. The high frequency words, sight words, heart words. You could hear all three next year, likely you will. You have a list of them in your packet, broken down by letter, which is wonderful. Again, you could hang this up too. And then you also have some sound box examples with your high frequency words. Sound boxes are fabulous. We love them in kindergarten. They're very helpful to segment or break up the sounds so you can see how many sounds there are in a word. So if you have the word as, there are 2 sounds, 2 boxes. So 2, does that make sense? But sometimes the sound is made by 2 letters. So in you, you'll see the Y is a sound by itself and the OU makes a sound too. Make sense? This is a little advanced for the beginning of kindergarten. However, kids come into kindergarten across a wide gamut. Some come in and cannot read anything yet, and that's okay. They don't know their letters yet, and that's okay. Some come in reading, and we have everything in between. So if your child is ready or may be ready, this is for you. All right? I have a few. I wanted to show you the heart word cards. So for example, this is the word my. The M is black because it says the sound we know, but the Y is red with the red heart on top because we've not yet learned that the Y says I in this case. Make sense? So sometimes you'll just see the red letter, sometimes you'll see just the red heart above or below, sometimes you'll see both, like in this case. Make sense?
Okay. So also in your bags are little journals. Another thing that you can do with your children is over the summer, if you're on a trip, if you go to the zoo, if you just go for a day somewhere, you can have them draw a picture of what they liked that day or their favorite thing, and you can have them write out what they did or what their picture is. And like Nicole said earlier in the presentation, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can go underneath of it and write what they're saying. Just that helps them understand using the writing utensil. You guys got crayons also. They can write it in crayons. And just getting them used to using a pencil or a crayon to paper and getting their ideas out on paper. You could also do the same thing with the dry erase boards and the dry erase markers that you were given. And you can practice some of the high frequency words, sight words, heart words, and you can do them in different colors. You can have them write a sentence on there, draw a picture. Like Nicole said, kids come in at all different points. It's our jobs to get them where they need to be. And then finally, you are also given a chicka chicka boom boom worksheet. You can have them, this kind of incorporates a little bit of math in here as well. They can write their name, count the letters in their name, and then they can get used to also that one-to-one correspondence, which is you'll learn about over in math. But touching and counting, like if their name is Ben, 1, 2, 3 for the letters in their name, and then also, again, just writing and using those writing utensils to paper. Do you want to add anything?
Yes, I thought of two things. When I said wiki sticks earlier, have you heard of that before? Those before? They're like waxy plastic, waxy like strips is what we'll call them. So you can find them at any Walmart, Target, Amazon kind of thing. But they kind of peel apart. You can stick them in the book. You could trace a letter with them, and they peel off and they don't destroy your book. You can have the same less. More able to find result with like a pipe cleaner. Makes sense. And then the other thing I was thinking of about the writing utensils, if you use a pencil, that's great. The shorter, the better for their little hands. So think golf pencils or like mini golf pencils. If you mini golf this summer, and I've asked before, may I take this with me? And they've always been very gracious in letting me have it. Or you can just kind of like sharpen down or chop down a pencil. It just gives their hand more control, which is great. Oh yes, broken crayons are the best for them to learn how to color and write with. At the beginning of the year in my classroom, we either use broken crayons or we use like the fat Crayola markers just to start, so they can really learn the grip. 2 fingers like an L, and then the rest of your fingers, your middle, your ring, and your pinky are down. That's like the best grip. I know some adults are like, oh man, that's not how I do it, but that's okay. We can change, right? So that's the strongest grip for the best success with their handwriting. And it's something that the earlier you change it, the better it is for them in the long run. Make sense? Okay. Another thing I didn't talk about with high frequency words before is anything that's fun is your friend when learning letters or high frequency words. So think chalk, like painting on the ground with water, that kind of thing, bath crayons, anything that's not sitting with a paper and pencil usually is more exciting for 4 and 5-year-olds. So anything that you can do in that area. Another thing that I love to do with my kids is looking through like junk mail before I recycled it and going on a letter hunt and try and scissor skills. You can have them cut it out too, which would be great. Good. Any questions for us with the ELA portion? The most important thing you can do to prepare your child as far as ELA goes for kindergarten is read to them as much as possible. The most important thing. Oh, I spy. Yes. For finding things that start with certain sounds or letters, environmental print, when they learn that they can read that says McDonald's or that says Chick-fil-A or that says Food Lion, it's like they're already a reader and they don't even know it. So if they can read their name and they can read words in their environment, they're already reading, and that's a very, very empowering thing to tell them and remind them.
The last thing I'll say, I don't know if they're ready or not to switch. Okay, is that just so you guys know, we're telling you all this, they do not have to have all these skills when you come into school. So last year, I think somebody was like panicked that this was all stuff that you guys needed to prepare them for during the summer. It is not. This is what they're going to be experiencing when they get to school, but just things that you can do to help them get ready to be there.
So we're in the math breakout room. We are going to go over some of the packets or handouts that are in your folder. So if you want to grab out your Unifix cube sheet as well as your Unifix cubes, which are these in case. So we're going to first look at the Unifix cube sheet. All right, so we're going to go through each area. The first one on that sheet is counting, and having kids be able to count just when you ask them, like, hey, can you count to 10 for me? And then just counting. Also using one-to-one correspondence, which means they're giving one object, one number, and not going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. They're actually going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then after they've counted, knowing how many they've counted. So if you ask them, how many blocks do you have? They can quickly give you the number and not have to recount, or they give you an incorrect number. So if you gave them 5 things to count, they counted with one-to-one correspondence. You ask them how many, they say 5, they don't say 6.
The next skill is building. So it's very important for your child to be able to build sets. That's using the Unifix cubes. It could be like crowns, bears, some kind of toy manipulator that you have at home. So just being able to have them, if you ask them to build you a set that is 4, connecting them, not connecting them, but building that 4. Additionally, the 5 frame and the 10 frame is something that we use a lot in kindergarten. It's just a model to help keep your child organized when they're counting their objects. So just placing one cube into one square for the 5 frame, same thing for the 10 frame. Then being able to build, count, know it's 7, but then in time, just knowing that that's 7 on that 10 frame.
The next one is patterns. So knowing that they can make patterns using their Unifix cubes and knowing that each one is a different color. So if you're doing an ABA pattern, you know that it goes red, blue, and continuing that on. Finishing patterns of like AABB, AABB, and just knowing how to finish those.
So comparing is another thing that is going to be huge in kindergarten, especially for units 1, 2, and 3, but 1 and 3 specifically. Comparing the sets, you're going to want them to have 2 different numbers. It could be numbers itself, or it could be using manipulatives like the Unifix cubes. The important thing to start off with is having them like line them up correctly, and then being able to identify this set is greater, this set is less. Your child is going to hear a lot of those different vocabulary words, greater than, less than, equal to, and they're going to be doing it 2 numbers to 20 by the end of kindergarten. In addition, incorporating those higher level questionings is great. Like, how do you know? So a response could be, I know 3 is greater because it has 1 more, or 3 is closer to 10, 2 is closer to 0.
The next one is number bonds on the second sheet, which is knowing that you can make numbers using different amounts of items. So we're gonna have you try it out. So using your Unifix cubes, make a group of 3 using both colors. Now, I know I said use both colors, but how many of you actually did all 3 of one color? That is one way that you could represent 3, right? How many of you did 1 and 2? So different ways of showing different numbers. This is also a number bond. So they could see the big number, which was 3, in the big part, and then breaking it apart or decomposing to 1 and 2, and knowing that this equals that.
So this is that whole decomposing skill. So just decomposing, breaking apart. You have your number bond, and then you also have your whole part mat. So same exact concept where 3 would be in the whole, and then in one part 2, and then did 1.
Sorry.
1 first. 1 and then 2. And the reason I tried to erase that with my fingers is because your child is going to be expected to write matching equations. So 1 plus 2 equals 3. However, with decomposing, your child will also be asked to decompose it a different way. So although this is 1 plus 2 equals 3, your child could do 2 plus 1 equals 3. So having them match was important for that concept. Measurement is going to occur. That is in our second unit. So There are currently 3 different ways that we measure height, weight, and length. Those vocabulary words are very important, but in addition to those vocabulary words, longer, shorter, taller, heavier, lighter, and then again, how do you know? So it's very important. A lot of manipulatives are used, like the Unifix cubes or other ones, but lining them up at the same starting point. I'm constantly telling my students, whether it's height, whether it's length, make sure they're at the same starting point. So then we can say, like, this one is longer. We can also throw in that comparing that they've learned from Unit 1 prior and saying, I know this one is longer, it has one more cube. So still reiterating that language and those skills that were previously taught.
And the last one on that page is one more, one less. So understanding that one more than 2 is 3, or if 3, 1 less than 3 is 2. So understanding the one more, one less.
And that kind of ties into the fact fluency, because when I say fact fluency, right now there is +1, -1, +0, -0, and then differences of 0. So the equation might be 7 + 1, 9 -1, 5 + 0, 6 - 0. Differences of 0 is 5 - 5. So the one more, one less also is pivotal and helps with knowing those equations and being able to solve them. You will also find writing numerals. So it's very important knowing how to write the numerals accurately. This is a Growing with Mathematics. It's a resource that we have in our curriculum that we can use. So it's a cute little like poem and song that your child can learn as they're writing. 0 to 10 reversals are allowed. So if your child writes 7 backwards, it's okay. That is developmentally appropriate. Our biggest thing is when we get into teen numbers is if they're writing 17 to write the 1 and then the 7, so it doesn't appear as 71. But that is not until Unit 3, so February starting.
On the back of your 5 and 10 frame, there are ways that you can practice math at home. Games are a great way to learn math and social skills, of turn taking. You can do it with cleaning up. Hey, let's put 3 cars away in the bucket. Now let's put 1 more away. So doing it through fun ways at home.
In science, we currently have 3 different units: interdependent relationships and ecosystems. Super, super fun unit that the kids love. We get to get caterpillars, watch the life cycle of them turn into a butterfly. Currently, we have tadpoles in the classroom, so they'll get to see that life cycle as well when they turn into frogs. Forces and interactions is all about the different pushes and pulls, but then also if it's a hard push, a gentle, a soft. We actually have a boat experiment design that we do. So the kids make a boat and they need to get like a little plastic sheet to go across, and they use the force that they learned about. And then weather and climate is a bigger science unit. We learn about different severe weather types like the tornadoes, the hurricanes. We do a testing the sun experiment with like an ice cube and trying to prevent it from melting. And then, of course, the different seasons and then the appropriate weather to wear within those seasons. For social studies, we have 4 units. These units are kind of tied into the different quarters. So quarter 1, we look at civics. So the different rules and responsibilities might be at school, might be at home, and then within the community. Unit 2 is geography. So we look at different locations and different modes of transportation. Unit 3, we are currently in economics, learning about different choices that you have and then being able to trade with others. And then our last unit is history, and we will focus on past, present, and future. A lot of that will be how history is collected and defined, but then also the different schedules. So it could be yesterday, today, tomorrow, this week, next week. And then second step is a social emotional unit that we have. It's not necessarily social studies. The teachers will incorporate it into their instruction, though. That could be the different social emotional skills, problem solving, helping to calm down and regulate your emotions. That is done throughout the school year, and then those skills are reinforced on a daily, weekly basis. We also have content rotations. So there are 6 different ones: construction, creation, imagination, problem solving, exploration, and communication. This is where that second step can really come into place with those problem solving skills, communicating with others, but then also incorporating the different math standards, ELA standards, science or social studies. So at exploration, there could be a standard of them identifying different objects from the fall season and then maybe sorting them as a skill for math.
Your students will go to different special areas classes for 1 hour every day of the week, and that schedule varies according to your child's homeroom. So they may have art on Mondays. They may go to PE on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They might have music. So there's art is a standalone. It's by itself. Art is an hour weekly. The others are 30 minutes 2 times a week. And that teacher for each of these classes is not your child's homeroom teacher. So they will be with a different teacher for that time block. And so then like health and media might be paired together for the 1 hour. Music and PE might be paired together for the 1 hour. You will receive this information before school starts. It's very, very important to like take note of that because you're going to want to put your child in sneakers or tennis shoes, like appropriate PE shoes, on the right days of the week. Makes sense. Because a lot of times if they're in fancy shoes, they can't participate in PE.
So collaboration between teachers. While your children are at specials, the classroom teacher has planning time for meetings. This is often used to collaborate with the special education teachers and plan lessons and activities that support IEP goals and discuss 504 accommodations. If your child has an IEP, a special education teacher or related service provider like speech, OT, or PT can provide services in the general education setting, or the child may be pulled out, which is in their IEP and determined during their annual IEP meetings. If the services are delivered in the general education setting, the general education teacher and special ed teacher will discuss the best ways to deliver services to your child in that setting.
Okay, this is a very important one, I feel like, especially for if this is your first kindergarten or Carroll County Public Schools student. Home Access Center. You can't sign up right now, so don't do it just right away, but you will need to create an account for Home Access. You'll want to do this sometime over the summer, closer to when the school year is starting. But in order to find out your child's teacher on that August 15th date, it will be under the Home Access Center. Additionally, this is where you can see the classes, you can see the teachers, you'll be able to see your child's login, email address, password. Every student gets one. Don't worry, your child's not like logging onto the internet quite away, but they will have access to some computers at school in which they have to have a login and a password. You don't have to worry about that as much as the media specialist or your child's teacher will cover that. But if you wanted to have access to that information, this is where it would be found. Additionally, your child's cafeteria PIN number will be under here. So you can send in money for lunch or snacks for your child, but let's say you send in a $5 bill, you don't come home with change, it'll go right into their account. So you could either send in cash or a check, or you could upload it through here. That's also the My School Bucks, so right under the Home Access Center. These are a few other resources that you will use as well. The biggest ones for kindergarten, Clever is a huge one. That has several different resources. Pending your school, it might determine what kind of resources are there. Discovery Education is one that is predominantly used in science. However, we can be cross-curricular, and that can be used during math or ELA. Pebble Go is another one, but that Clever account, your child will have a lot of access to outside of school, but then also in school. So it's got a lot of really good resources to be used. Yeah, and all the way to 12th. So this isn't just going to be for kindergarten year. It'll keep going till they graduate. Field trips. This is a big one. So your child will be attending a field trip or two, depending on your school. If you would like to attend that field trip and you are selected as a chaperone, you must be volunteer trained 7 days before the trip. There is a link. It's very easy to fill out. Attached to this, permission slips will come home. You will receive them probably 2 weeks before the field trip. And then additionally, bringing in a bagged lunch, or your child can order a lunch from the cafeteria. The teacher will send out all the information in regards to the field trip in plenty of advance. You might even hear some information at back to school night, but wanting to attend or volunteer in the classroom, just know you need to complete the volunteer training. And if you complete it now, it doesn't count for next school year. So hold off on completing it until your child is officially a kindergarten student.
And I'm going to send out these forms electronically. So that's hyperlinked as well as the slide before this. So when you get this, you'll be able to have access to it. But like Nicole said, don't do it now because it'll be voided. So.
All right, so what else can you do to help prepare for kindergarten? I'm going to read each of these because they're very important. I want to make sure you hear them. Practice opening containers and or baggies that they will use at lunch. If possible, the couple weekends before, or if you're at home with them in the summer, pack their lunch in their lunchbox and literally have a lunch, like a school lunch at home. Have them open their zipper or their snap of their lunchbox, have them open each item, eat, have them like talk, but like eat at the same time. All of that is like needs practice. They have 30 minutes for lunch, but you know how fast a 30-minute lunch can go. So the more independent they are, the faster and easier they can eat. There will be plenty of staff in the cafeteria to help, but if your child can open them, it's so much better. Zip coats and unzip coats. And with that, I would also say being able to like inside out it, making the arms go the right way, especially when it gets cold. But the sweatshirts too, they need a lot of help with zippers. So that would be a great thing to start practicing even now as we're still wearing coats and jackets out there. And it's really great for your fine motor skills to be able to manipulate a zipper. Have them write their name with only an uppercase letter at the beginning and lowercase letters for the rest of the name. So if we're using Ben again, we would use a capital B and then lowercase e, lowercase n. So if your child's already writing their name in all capital letters, awesome. So then you can say, let's challenge ourselves to do it this way. Practice using scissors. I know that feels scary as a parent. I remember being scared as a parent, and I'm a kindergarten teacher. But the more you can practice having them cut things, the better. So you can be creative about this. You can do a project, or you can literally just have them cut a line on a piece of paper. However, the more they practice with scissors, again, the less stressful cutting will be in school. Washing hands and using tissues independently, kind of practicing like how much soap do we need? How much water do we need? How do we get our paper towels? If you're out at like a public place, practice using the bathroom, the toilet, especially if it has automatic flushers. I know some schools have only automatic flushers, and that can be a really scary sound to hear at first. So kind of getting used to that and getting used to washing your hands, drying them, all those things. And then using tissues independently for blowing their nose, like walk them through all of that. And then practice sitting for longer periods of time. We talked about building stamina with listening to a story, kind of the same thing. You could use a timer or a song, just having them be able to just kind of sit for a little bit. Maybe you're just sitting on the porch and looking at nature and looking at birds or watching your dog, or just for a little bit at a time and then gradually increasing it would be huge. Another great place to practice that is the public library's story times and puppet shows that they have in the summer. So check out your local library because that's a great resource, honestly, for a lot of things, including practicing sitting. And then set an expectation to work with others or play with others. So what does that look like? What does that sound like? How are we using our hands? How are we not using our hands? What kinds of things can we say? So modeling that with them. And then again, the library or playgrounds are great places for that. How do you talk nice to your brother or sister or your cousins or the kids in the neighborhood? Another thing that's really important is having them be able to self-advocate. So if they need help, do they know how to ask for help? So being able to raise their hand and say, I need, or I can't, can you help me with, and again, really can't, isn't it? I can't find, or can you help me please? Those kind of things. At home, kids don't typically have to ask to go to the bathroom, right? But in school, they do. We need to know where they are, or we have procedures for that. So, kind of maybe just talking to them about that and saying, oh, do you need to go to the bathroom? Or let's go to the bathroom, like you would in a public place. And then the other thing I wanted to we just kind of wanted to mention is communication in kindergarten will likely look a little bit different than it does in pre-K or a daycare setting, where you have more like direct communication daily, or maybe a notebook or something like that. In kindergarten, your teacher will tell you at the beginning of the year, like what's the best way to communicate with them. Typically an email or a note is the easiest, but also remember that we're teaching all day long and we're not at our computer answering emails. So give 48 hours is really appropriate for a response. And if you don't hear back, I always tell my parents, just resend that email to me. Sometimes it gets lost. There's a lot that goes on in an email inbox, as I'm sure you know, during the day. So if something's really important, call the school, but otherwise give that a little bit of time.
All right, so I have the last slide before questions. This is the information that hopefully will put you at ease, knowing that you're sending your most precious individual to us that we want to take into our care and, of course, educate them, but also make sure that they're safe throughout the day. So in Carroll County Public Schools, there's a standard response protocol for any type of situation that would require a response where all of our students are practicing these drills. Our staff are able to help children maneuver any unexpected situation that might arise. In a standard response protocol, you have this handout in your folders. The PowerPoint, when you get it, this yellow at the bottom is hyperlinked to the foundation that our safety and security officers have built this program off of. So in essence, a standard response protocol is something that we use in our schools that's a uniformed practice response for all of our students and our staff. And again, it's focusing on keeping our schools and, of course, our children, our community safe. The benefits of this is that we have a standardized vocabulary and communication. All of our stakeholders, again, the community that's in our buildings, the teachers, the students all have practice drills so that we can be prepared in the event that we have a situation that would require a response such as one of these indicators, and I'll talk to you a little bit about those. Again, it's continuity for expectations and the actions. And again, this is from anywhere from our pre-K students all the way up through 12th graders. They're easy to understand practices. We reinforce the protocol, again, through our drills. And again, it's so that we have clear language and we can have a rapid response for safety. So the first one that our students, again, these are all practice, is called a hold. And so this would be a situation where our students and staff have to remain in their classroom, or they stay out of a particular area that we don't want them to have access to. A situation might be that there could be an altercation in the hallway, there could be a medical emergency. Again, this would just require us to have one area of the building sort of safety so that children aren't coming in and out of that area. Again, keeping the hallways open in the case that we might need to get some assistance to students, maybe in a medical situation. The next one is secure. What the students will also be hearing is the same as what they do in drill. So the language is really clear. So there's a public address that comes over the loudspeaker, and it will literally say, secure, get inside, lock the outside doors. So these are words and language that students are hearing, so it becomes predictable for them. In this situation, we might call for a secure if there's some type of a threat or a hazard that could be occurring outside of our school building. This could be maybe violence in the area, some kind of activity that would require the neighborhood around us in the school area, maybe even just a dangerous animal on a playground area where we wouldn't want our students out there. And again, this is to secure the physical facility, again, for students' protection. The next one is called lockdown. And again, the students would hear something like lockdown, locks, lights, out of sight. In this situation, there could be a threat or a hazard that's happening within the school building. And this could be a parental custody dispute that maybe has occurred that's been brought into the school building. We could have intruders. Again, a lockdown uses our classroom and school security protocols, again, always to keep our students and staff safe. Typically, an administrator is calling for these, but any staff member, if they see the threat, can also call for this because these are over the loudspeaker. So again, it's practiced, it's trained, our students are familiar with these things should we have an event as an emergency. Lockdown could also be a situation like, again, we could have a dangerous animal within the school building. Not that this occurs very often, but that's a situation where it could be called. We could have an angry parent or student who is needing extra support. And again, we don't want our students to be involved in that situation or have to be around the area. The next one is an evacuation. Again, in this case, the students would hear evacuate and the location would then be named. Sometimes it's within the building they would locate to an area or sometimes outside of the building. This would be called when we have to move people in a very rapid, quick fashion from one location to another area for their safety. An on-site could be conducted because there, again, could be a mechanical failure within a certain area of the building that we might have to move students so that that area could be resolved in a timely fashion. Sometimes we would have to move students off-site, and again, that location is identified ahead of time through safety protocols, and it would be when the building itself, inside the building, would not be safe for the students, so we may have to locate them elsewhere. And when we evacuate, again, kids are practicing that, similar to what like a fire drill would be. They quickly exit the building in a quiet and orderly manner. The last one there is shelter. And in this case, again, a student would hear something like shelter for a tornado, which we just had recently, although our students weren't in the building. And then they would tell us which area to go to. So for instance, in this building, there was a tornado incident. They called for a tornado drill. There's a shelter in the bathroom. There's a shelter in the stairwell. And so those are the types of directions or public address. Shelter could be due to a lot of different safety or hazards, a tornado, severe weather, flooding, hazmat spills, things like that. Again, all of these things are intended to decrease the anxiety so that we are anticipating, we have a routine for this, it's a procedure, so people are aware of what to do in the case of an emergency with this common language, and our responders in the community also are aware of this type of language so that everybody in the community has a consistent messaging and knows exactly what they're responding to or what to expect when they get to the area. And the last thing I want to just mention, in the calendar that you'll get from Carroll County Public Schools, the very last page does have that emergency step-by-step procedures as well. And it talks about what the students do and what the staff would do. Again, should there be an emergency that would require a response to keep our students safe.